Hi there, and welcome to another episode of A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm B.C. Cloutier, President of Action for Life, and this is Father Michael Orsi. Hello, Father.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Doing great.
All right.
And I'm loving our topic today.
Oh my gosh, I have a feeling that this is going to be very, very interesting.
How should today's Catholics think about the Prince of Darkness?
Well, first of all, it's real. He's real.
Yeah.
There is an evil spirit. People go back, of course, to the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis, and it's the devil tempting Eve, and then Eve offering Adam the apple, and all our troubles started right from there.
Went off the rails right then and there.
Right then and there, God, gave them a beautiful place to live. They had everything going for them, but the devil came and tempted them. And then by an act of free will, that's what it was, an act of free will, they decided they were going to eat that apple, that way they could be like God.
And we've been eating apples ever since.
By the bushel.
Let me tell you something that you probably already know, and that is that a few months ago, Pope Francis was interviewed by an Italian journalist, and he talked about when he was Archbishop of Buenos Aires. He said he was approached by several people who claimed to be possessed by the devil. The Pope said, "We should not think of the devil as a myth, a representation, a symbol, a figure of speech, or an idea. That mistake would lead us to let our guard down, to grow careless, and to end up more vulnerable. There are forces that we choose to invite into our hearts and minds. God's grace, for example, may guide us toward making a just and right decision. But at times, because we have free will,
Right.
we choose to do something evil. Temptation. That is the devil."
That is the devil. Perhaps you remember when we were young, there used to be a cartoon that had a devil on one shoulder,
The guardian angel.
the guardian
Yeah,
angel on the other shoulder,
Sure.
and the devil is making all of these wonderful propositions. Boy, it sounds so good, and the angel is saying, "Hey, wait, that's not a good idea. You better not do that." Yet all of us succumb to temptation, as I said, because we have a free will, but we also have human weakness, and the devil preys on that human weakness.
You know, it's funny you should mention that, Father. To this day, when I am faced with a moral dilemma,
Mm-hmm.
I feel my guardian angel here, and I feel the evil one here.
Yeah, it is amazing how we can feel the presence of evil. We could also feel the presence of grace. Again, we have the ultimate decision as to what we're going to do with this. But to deny that the devil exists is the heights of foolishness, because not only do we have the devil making his appearance in the Garden of Eden, but also when Jesus is tempted in the desert.
In the desert, 40 days.
40 days, and the devil is right there with him. Now, what was going on is that the devil was trying to dissuade Jesus from his mission, to break down his will. That way he wouldn't go on with his public ministry.
Sure.
And of course, what happens is that Jesus is, they say he was weak from fasting.
Mhm.
However, he was strong from praying. And there's that sense that you get grace. Even in the midst of temptation, God's grace is present. And we have to pray for God's grace when temptation comes our way. Because quite honestly, from my own experience, when we succumb to temptation, our life becomes chaos.
Yeah, bad things happen.
Yeah.
A priest who we know told me once that he sometimes felt the presence of Satan in his bedroom late at night. And he kept a spray bottle of holy water by his bed. And he said, "I just squirted it, and that solved it." It's an interesting and quite simple way of defending yourself from those evil forces.
Yeah, well, holy water, once again, is a sacramental. It reminds us that we have sacramental grace within us through baptism. And that is very offensive to the devil. He does not want to be reminded of our baptism, and he flees from anything holy. Remember, we used to watch these movies about vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, what was one of the things that the vampire couldn't stand? The sign of the cross.
Oh, that's right.
Sign of the cross.
I forgot about that. And now people do it like this.
Right.
Same thing.
Yeah. And that was a way to ward off evil. And the same is true for the use of holy water. You go sometimes into Catholic homes, and you can see a small holy water font right near the door.
We have one.
Yeah. I have one too. But you know what was on my door originally? A mezuzah.
Mezuzah. Yeah. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, how beautiful this is that when these Jewish people came into their home, they would kiss the mezuzah because that reminded them that God was reigning in their house and they wanted God's blessings in their house. So what I think you should do, folks, is get a little holy water font and put it near your door. And that way, when you go into your home, that you are protecting yourself against the evil one. And the other thing is get some holy water. And you could even get a little holy water sprinkler in a religious goods shop, and you could sprinkle it around your house, or you can have your home blessed by one of the priests or deacons of the parish. So all these things are protections against the evil one. But you have to know the evil one is out to destroy your soul, number one, to take you away from God, to create chaos in your life. If your life is chaotic, I don't mean just like, it's messy, but chaotic. Chaos is a sign of evil. It's not peace. It's not peace in your heart, not peace in your home. If you live and you're continually in turmoil, filled with anxiety and filled with all kinds of bad thoughts, and you're anxious, and your family is falling apart, take a look under the bed. The devil might be hiding there.
That brings up a point that, there are many, many successful people that are experiencing inner turmoil. Mm-hmm. And I keep hearing that there aren't enough psychotherapists to deal with all the issues. It seems to me that if people would get closer to God, that they would have less inner turmoil and ergo less need for psychotherapy.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Bishop Sheen, he was just wonderful when he spoke about that. He said that oftentimes what we need in our life is the experience of God's peace. And we wouldn't have to rely so much on psychiatrists or psychologists. Folks, not that they're good. If you need a psychiatrist, go to a psychiatrist. If you need a prescription for medication, calm you down, straighten your head out, take care of that. You need a psychologist, talk things over with. But you could also talk to your parish priest. Go to confession, get some advice. There was a time, and I don't know if you remember this, BC, where priests would have appointments lined up because people were coming in for counseling.
Yeah, sure.
We didn't have all the professionals that we have today that, are taking care of these things in a professional way and in a lucrative way.
Yeah.
But they would go to the parish priest, and he would solve or try to help them solve their problems. And it could simply be a family problem, a marital problem, a problem with the kids. But his advice was enough that it would help a lot of people out that didn't have to go to the next professional step. And I think a lot of people have forgotten the value of the priest in giving them counseling. The priest now is just somebody who dispenses sacraments, maybe, and is not looked upon as, you get that term, Father, it's for feeding the family with God's food, God's bread, especially the Eucharist, the sacraments. But it's also someone that you would like to think as being a wise person, a trained person who can guide you in the right way. So use that resource that you have in your own parish and ask the priest maybe to help you to discern what's going on in your life, and maybe some recommendations of how it can be made better.
And I would add, that goes for Protestant ministers
and
Jewish rabbis.
Of course.
And probably imams too.
Yeah.
Let's take a break.
Okay.
We'll be back right after this. But for the moment, I'd like to talk to you about the expense of airing this program. Many people don't realize how expensive it is to produce this program and to get it on the air. Would you care to guess? It's about $3,000 per week. We think that's a reasonable expenditure, but obviously it's an expensive one. So we need to ask for your help. If you'll go to actionforlife.org and click on the donate button, it would be greatly appreciated. Now, you can donate once or you can donate each month, and we certainly have viewers who do both. We appreciate that. Please take time now to visit actionforlife.org and click on the donate button. Thank you so much for your support, and may God bless you always. Welcome back to A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm B.C. Cloutier. Before the break, we were talking, I guess the whole program, we're talking about the evil one, but it seems to me that getting religion in your life, and I say this based on my personal experience, is a very good way to deal with some of your emotional problems.
Yes, yes. As you are well aware, and folks, I'm sure you've heard this, the number of people who are practicing no religion at all, according to the latest Gallup poll, has decreased. We're down to about 33% of people in our country
with religion.
Yeah, that are still practicing some kind of religion. Gradually, even that number is eroding. It's eroding rather rapidly. And you will notice that as religion decreases, so too do psychological problems increase, family problems increase, but a lot of social problems increase too. For instance, when we talk about social problems, we're talking about structures in our society. One of those structures has to be government. And as we see, government in our country is beginning to fray, and a lot of people no longer trust the government. And so what you have then is a society that is in turmoil, and the devil works through structures, not just individual people, although people are the ones that are responsible for the structures. They're sinful people. But we do have structures that allow for chaos and turmoil. For instance, let's just talk about an increase in war. Okay.
I was just thinking Putin is a good example of somebody who the devil has in total control.
Well, I think that they shook hands. I think that they shook hands. But look at the situation that we have, in Ukraine. Look at the situation that we have in Gaza. And you got to say the devil is involved in that someplace. When you can have innocent Israelis slaughtered by Hamas, and then a war going on there now that is practically leveling Gaza. 35,000 civilians have already been killed in Israeli operations in Gaza. That's the devil in that. And I'm going to say this, very important. We are made in God's image and likeness. Right? We should never be rejoicing in the deaths of anyone.
Right.
We can rejoice that God gave victory to the righteous, that those who are doing his will, but to rejoice in the death of God's image and likeness is evil, So some of the rabbis would even say that you should never rejoice in something that is evil. For instance, the killing of innocent people, or the killing of sometimes people who are not even innocent, aren't even innocent. May they deserve punishment. Some people deserve the punishment. They've committed heinous crimes. But do we rejoice in their death? Do we rejoice in their execution? Do we rejoice in their demise? No. We rejoice that evil has been overcome, but not in the death of a human being. We just don't celebrate death because we didn't like somebody or they did us dirty. That's not Christian. As a matter of fact, it's not even Jewish. Not even Jewish.
And what about the death penalty?
Well, this, of course, is one that is being debated, although traditionally the death penalty has always been accepted. Do you remember when Osama bin Laden, remember when he was executed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, he was shot by, I guess, CIA, Navy SEALs.
Navy SEALs, yeah.
Right? There were some folks that I was in Starbucks when that morning we found out about it, and they were rejoicing, hooray, they got him, hooray, they got him. And a woman turned around and she said, you shouldn't be clapping about that. He was a human being too. And you know what? She was right. She was right. Now, did he deserve what he got. That's called retribution.
Mhm.
And that way you balance the scales of justice. That's retribution. You balance the scales of justice. But it's for justice's sake that we had to take him out. Folks, unfortunately, sometimes somebody like that has to be taken out because they are dangers to society. You don't want the crimes to be perpetrated again. And one of the things you want to do is to eliminate somebody who's dangerous. And number two, dissuade other people from doing the same thing. Now, I'll make this one other point. This is the traditional theory regarding capital punishment. The whole idea of when we talk about executing someone, it's that we think we think that we have to rehabilitate people. Okay, the rehabilitation is not just a rehabilitation for this life. You get the idea of penitentiary, where you do penance, and then you come out better, and that the penitentiaries and jails and all of these places, that they are there to help people to get their heads on straight and to stop doing bad things.
But they're not.
Okay. What does rehabilitation mean? It means that I'm going to rehabilitate, and this is the traditional meaning, I'm going to rehabilitate you with God. You're going to get the death penalty because it's going to give you time to think over what you've done and how sorry you are for what you have done. All right. So when you say rehabilitate, you recall. Maybe some of you watch these old movies. Old movies are good, folks. You gotta watch these old movies. They're good. The judge gives a sentence, and may God have mercy on your soul. Okay? May God have mercy on your soul. I don't think they do that anymore, do they? I haven't seen that in trials. I haven't.
Hey, every movie I see is all bang, bang, shoot them up.
Right.
Killing right and left. Don't get me started on all these Democrats who want gun control, but they control the media, and all you see on television is people shooting each other.
This is a non-political program, folks. Well, no, I agree with you. Now, the other thing is, remember when somebody would go to the execution chamber, there's a chaplain walking with them.
I think that still happens often, doesn't it?
I think it's by request.
Right.
I think it's by request. And because you could certainly say no to that. But once again, the idea with the chaplain was to help you, first of all, to be at peace with God, and then to be ready to meet God when your final end came. So as far as capital punishment is concerned, traditionally, there is no problem with capital punishment. However, certain societies might decide that it's not good for right now. And therefore, for right now, we are saying we don't want this in our state. We don't want this in our country. And that's fair enough. That's fair enough. But to just say a blanket no, I don't think it's intrinsically evil.
I had a conversation with Mario Cuomo when he was governor of New York, and he was against the death penalty. And of course, they banned it in New York State. And I said to him, but Governor, I mean, there are some people who just deserve to die for their sins, right? And he said, well, let me ask you this. And it made me pause. He said, what is greater punishment, death or spending your life in a 6-by-8 foot cage? It's a powerful argument.
Yeah, it is. But why do people who have the death penalty fight to stay alive?
Well,
yeah, I mean, if you'd say, hey, look, I'd rather die than sit in that cage for the rest of my life, but they don't. Every one of them is looking to be let, to get a reprieve from the governor. So evidently, it is more horrible to think I'm going to die than to sit in the cage.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
And you make a good point, Father.
Well, I always do.
We'll be back right after this.
Hi, folks. Over the weeks, you have become more and more familiar with our program, Conversations with Father Orsi. I know that you are enjoying the programs because you tell me that you do. I want you to be sure that you should never worry about missing an episode because you can go to actionforlife.com
actionforlife.org and catch all of the episodes that we have produced over the last year. Now, also, extra added bonus, you can watch my homilies, my weekly homilies about the Sunday readings. That's also on actionforlife.org. Lastly, both of these adventures, conversations and the homilies, they cost money. And I'm going to have to ask you if you can help us out, because so many of you tell me how much you enjoy the program. Some people tell me our Sunday wouldn't be the same. We record the program, we watch them during the week. This is an expensive enterprise, and we think it's an important way to get out the gospel message and to talk about those issues of the day that are important to us as Christians. So please go to your website, actionforlife.org. There is a button you can click for donations, and please be generous to us to keep this show on the air. Your Sundays will not be the same without it.
And we're back to a conversation with Father Orsi. I'm B.C. Cloutier. We were talking about, forget about what we were talking about. Let's talk more about the evil one, because I think sometimes people don't really think through the war machine. The devil's got to be involved in that.
Got to be involved.
The munitions industry and nuclear weapons.
For sure. You know, we have to look at certain structures and we have to say, are these structures of God? So you talk about the war machine. I am very, very dubious, and we've talked about this, I think, in the past, if not on this show, at least privately. The war in Ukraine. Ukraine cannot survive without help from the United States and NATO, mostly from the United States. Now, what is motivating this? Why aren't we able to reach some kind of an agreement with Ukraine? And don't just say, well, because Putin doesn't want it. Many believe it's the military-industrial complex, that, you know, it's a money-making machine, and we're, you know, making the munitions and we're sending them over to Ukraine, and we're making money that way, and it keeps the economy going.
Yep.
So we have to look at the ammunitions industry and say, is this in some way diabolical? Is this diabolical in some way? And you know what? Anything that is there to destroy human beings, we talked about this earlier, you don't want to destroy human life. We're all made in God's image and likeness, no matter who you are, whether you're Osama bin Laden or whoever you are, or Vladimir Putin, who claims to be a devout Christian.
Yeah, right.
You have to ask yourself, is the devil somehow involved with this? The same thing is, you know, believe me, folks, I think capitalism is the finest system ever designed by human beings to create wealth and to lift people up and help them to. But if it's unbridled capitalism, where you forget about human beings and you're simply in there to make money, and you are simply in there because you don't care about anybody else but you, then that becomes an evil too.
And I think there's a lot of that going on, unfortunately. That the stock price trumps many other considerations, like just, the way human beings are treated.
Yeah.
That let's just eliminate another 10,000 jobs and that'll make the stock price go up. Forget about 10,000 people that can no longer earn a living. Not my problem. I mean, there's kind of, there's an attitude like that exists throughout business in America.
Right. You know, and if people are simply worrying about, making a profit and don't take into consideration other people, that becomes very sinful. To be a child of God means you're concerned about everyone. And if you look through the scriptures talk about our need to be sensitive to the needs of our brothers and sisters throughout the world. Once we get to the point where people don't make a difference and the only thing that we care about is making money, we have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an evil structure. So those are the things that we have to take a look at, that certain structures lend themselves to dehumanization. Especially we look at something like the maximization of profit. If that's all it's about, we're on the wrong track. And in a capitalist society, we have to be attentive to that. We have to be attentive to that. If we're not, we dehumanize ourselves. And unfortunately, I think that in many circumstances, we can see that happening right now.
Companies are getting awfully big, and I'm with you. I'm a capitalist through and through. But, when companies reach almost monopoly status,
Right.
you have to question whether or not we're on the wrong track.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the direction that we have to go in is to always ask ourselves, how are the least members of our society being treated? We always have to ask that question. And we always have to make provisions for those people. We have to make provisions for those people. Now, am I talking about socialism? No, I'm not talking about socialism. But what I am talking about is that we have to be genuinely concerned with a safety net. That way, nobody falls through and is living a less than human existence. It's having that safety net. And I think that, the good societies are the ones that are very, very attentive to that.
Mm-hmm.
When a society forgets about those on the bottom and lets them fall through that safety net, the whole society begins to deteriorate. And then it becomes, we talked about the defacing of human life, made in God's image and likeness, but it also enables chaos. And you look at some of these societies where people are very, very poor, they're very, very rich and they're very, very poor, and you say to yourself, what a mess that place is. Look
Haiti.
how they're living. Look at Haiti.
Haiti is a very good example.
Yeah.
There are some very well-off people
Sure.
in Haiti,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, they are the exception
Yeah.
rather than the rule. Final thoughts, Father?
Final
As
thoughts is we
wrap
have to be attentive to the presence of the devil inside of ourselves, number one. And number two, look at the structures of our society. We talked about the military. We talked about capitalism. At the end, we talked about Haiti. I mean, who's causing the chaos over there? Who's causing human life to be degraded? Sometimes it's those people that are allegedly in charge, the politicians, the military. Okay, what's his name is running Haiti now? Hamburger? Or barbecue.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
And somebody says,
He's a thug.
yeah, where'd they get the name? He says, my mother gave me that name. And somebody said, no, his mother didn't give him that name. It's because he barbecues people. That's evil, folks.
Time for us to wrap up today. We thank you for being with us, and we hope you will be with us again next Sunday for a conversation with Father Orsi. Until then, have a great week, and God bless.